Welcome back, everybody. Time for us to go behind the headlines. And speaking of Herb Thrasher, some of the other places you'll see Herb Thrasher coming up, not this Saturday, but the following Saturday is the Global Cannabis March. May the 4th, Star Wars Day, we'll be gathering at Portland's Pioneer Courthouse Square. There'll be a stage. We'll have a PA. We'll be streaming live. We'll have the megaphones to lead the march. It's going to be a great time. Herb Age will be there, Oregon Normal, Moms for Marijuana, National Cannabis Coalition, and you. If you can't find your own city's march, you can tune into ours, but your first assignment is to find your own city's march and participate in it. It's only because I participated in my march 8 years ago that led me to where I am today, to being a part of this marijuana movement. Get on board. It's time to fight for your freedom. All right, for Behind the Headlines today, we've got this video that was sent to me. It came via Huffington Post, I believe, and apparently it's of a reporter who got a little too high on the job and overdosed a bit on medibles. I hope you'll enjoy it. This will be my first time watching it too, so let's take a look.
I just didn't think twice about the food, even though she had told us that there were food samples prepared with really high-powered marijuana, high-THC marijuana. Yes. It's probably fair to say that over the last few years, I've become a pot reporter. In 2010, the marijuana marketplace was sort of exploding in California. You had people coming out of the shadows who had been growing or selling for years illegal, and all of a sudden they had websites, they were operating publicly. All of a sudden, this kind of seemed like a mainstream industry. At the same time, we were talking to confidential informants, trying to dig in on the dark side of the trade, talking to Mexicans who might have links to drug gangs across the border. You saw this sort of secretive world emerging, and you could shine a little bit of light on it. In Los Angeles, we came across a woman who had been an illegal pot dealer, but who's now really trying to be a businesswoman. She let us follow her as she was doing her thing, running a medical marijuana delivery service. She's very well organized, carries a small suitcase with her samples in it. She delivered to a teacher who was on lunch break in the back of a Starbucks parking lot. She went to a production company where she delivered to a film editor there. The sort of climax to our visit was these Sunday brunches she would have at her house in West LA. Men and women came with their kids in strollers, a lot of young professional types. There was music, football game on TV, food and desserts, and then in a rear cottage, there were bongs and joints and all sorts of samples. In her house, she would have a doctor who was available for consultation in a sort of side home office. People would come in, fill out their medical marijuana forms, spend a few minutes with the doctor, and they would get their recommendations. The woman would offer to supply these people with their now medical marijuana. It was all one-stop shopping. It was a brunch with pot.
And that's a good thing.
She had said that some of the desserts were laced with medical marijuana, and some weren't, and I didn't really pay close attention to that. I was busy capturing this remarkable scene, so I ate the brownies.
So I ate the brownies.
Yeah.
I was in a little bit of a hurry, had to catch my flight back to San Francisco. So I grabbed my gear, hopped in a cab, went straight to the airport, check-in and all that. And when I got to the terminal, you know, LAX is a rather large airport.
Oh, yeah.
I started getting this dreamlike feeling that I wasn't
Where am I?
in
Who is this?
the present universe.
Why is
And
this
I knew
walkway walking
immediately
without me?
that something had gone wrong.
Oh, no.
And it hits me.
This is the best way to fly, if you ask
I
me.
am like totally stoned.
That's savage, dude.
I'm not going to get really stoned. This is just going to... And then I thought, oh my God. It's hitting me. And I'm going further and further and further into this other world. And then I started feeling these extreme sensations of anxiety. I wanted to get on my flight. I wanted to get back to San Francisco. So I tried to control my feelings. And I actually got into the airplane. The blinking lights, the white paint,
Fried
the
trip.
electronica music. I had never flown Virgin American before this trip.
Oh.
There was no one sitting on either side of me, and I kept looking out the window thinking, well, if I can just keep looking out the window, I'll be okay.
Yeah, right.
And then William
And then I
Shatner's
thought,
on the
what if
wing.
I'm
Oh
not
my God.
okay. What if I freak out mid-flight?
Yeah, that's the best thing to start
And,
thinking. If
you know,
what
they
if
have
I
to
freak
alert
out?
Homeland Security. And think of the headlines. Pot reporter overdoses on his own medicine or something like that. I got to get out of this plane.
Let's get the Puffington.
I said I was not feeling well. Got back into the terminal and found an obscure spot and really literally crumpled up into a ball and tried to sleep, but it was just coming at me, the high. So I just didn't know if I was going to come back from this place.
I've never been that happy for my life.
Finally, I called my wife, and she told me to just stay where I was until I felt better. I was probably there for about 4 hours before I could even think about booking another flight. It was only after that, some days later, that I was talking to some people I know who are in the medical marijuana business, and they said, look, for our patients who use pot all the time, we tell them to take half a brownie or a quarter of a brownie and wait 2 hours
Yeah.
and see what happens.
Exactly.
Oh, he asked
I had
after he
eaten
ate.
2 marijuana brownies,
Oh.
high potency pot brownies.
Oh.
So I think, you know, in a funny way, that this experience got me to think a little bit harder about pot.
To learn something.
If I were a 16-year-old kid and ate 2 of these brownies, where would it lead me if I were driving a vehicle? Things like that. Medical marijuana supporters say it should be, you know, closely regulated. Right now, it's not.
Yeah.
The pot today, I feel, is very different from the pot, you know, 20 or 30 years ago when I was a kid. So this was 2 years ago. I've gone on to continue to cover the pot world, but I have to say, every time I smell a joint, I smell pot, you know, which is lots of places in the Bay Area, I sort of still have that slight little pulse.
I got to cut this off because here's a guy who hasn't smoked pot in 20 years, and he's complaining that now he tried it and took 2 brownies, that the pot is so much worse and so much terrible these days. Sorry, guy, not going to fly for us. That's like saying, you know, back in the day, I used to drink a whole lot of beers. It's been 20 years since I drank beers. And so now I've decided to butt chug a couple shots of Bacardi 151. Not going to work, pal.